I am going to beat you into the living death.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Walkout Network. It's your man Ant Walker here with the latest edition of the Living Death Show. Before we begin, obviously things are a little different right now, so our normal recording process had to be changed for the day. We'll have the logistics of everything else worked out by next week. So still the same content, still the same level of goofing off, mixed with somewhat intelligent analysis of mixed martial arts. So let's go ahead and introduce two gentlemen who need no introduction, but we love them so much we're going to do it anyway. First up is the jack of all trades who has mastered them all, the senior editor of SureDog.com, and my man Ben Duffy. What's up, Ben?
Hey, I'm doing all right. I've got to say, and I don't mean to preempt or spoil where we're going with this show, but I'm getting a little tired of having to lead off with discussions of unsanctioned violence. Nonetheless, I'm here and nobody better to discuss it with than you two.
All right, absolutely. And of course, the panel is anchored every week by the man with the stats, the facts, the figures, and the numbers. He is the associate editor of SureDog.com, also my good friend, Mr. Jay Petrie. What's going on, Jay?
I feel like I'm going to need to start with a bonus stat of the week for the number of criminal complaints filed against MMA fighters these days, because we had Covington, we had Covington Masvidal, we had Chael Sonnen, we had Conor McGregor. Well, Will Smith is a not an amateur boxer, but he wants the boxer. Um, it's a weird week for the fight sport, because the events are over, but there's still way too much to talk about. And we have a week off, and I guess I'll start off with the stat of the week, because there was a UFC card this past weekend, and we'll talk about that later. I'm sure we have other extracurriculars to talk about. Zero is our stat of the week, because when Curtis Blaydes fought Chris Daukaus, he attempted 0 takedowns. This is the first time that's ever happened for Curtis Blaydes in his 15 UFC fights. He's never not tried to take someone down. And that's interesting for the most prolific takedown artist in heavyweight history, at least in the UFC. So yeah, 0 is the stat of the week.
Yeah, definitely an interesting stat there. A very, very unexpected one. None of us really had that in mind when we were making our predictions last week, but the results were the results, and we will get into that in just a moment. But the first order of the day, yet again, is outside of the cage violence. So and and even last night we had Hollywood's version of this at the Oscar Awards. Jorge Masvidal has been arrested, charged with 2 felonies, for an alleged altercation with Colby Covington. The story goes that um, Colby was at some steakhouse in Miami with a couple of YouTubers or something, and Masvidal somehow knew he was there, ran up on him as he's leaving the place, punches him in the face a couple of times, breaks a tooth, and Kobe, filed a police report, as a tax-paying citizen has the right to do, to all all you tough guys on the internet calling him a punk for snitching or whatever. But he recognized him due to his voice, knowing him for so long, and having his ponytail hanging out of the hoodie. So this story is just so ridiculous on so many different levels. But first things first, gentlemen, were you shocked by any of the goings on in front of a said steakhouse in Miami?
I I definitely was surprised. I did not expect Masvidal to actually track Covington down and assault him in public. No, but that's that's a little surprising. And I guess I'm not surprised that Covington, went to the police. I don't. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess that part's not surprising. So yeah, I'm surprised it's happened. I'm not really surprised at anything that's played out since. And I think a lot of the takes on it are kind of premature, because just about any time somebody is arrested for a violent crime, the charges on paper look excessive because they're throwing everything that might possibly stick, and what actually makes it to trial, if anything, is generally much, much less. So, yeah, it's a weird little story. And funny thing is, right now it feels like it happened a month ago. And what was it, like 8 days?
Yeah, it's like crazy how fast the news cycle is operating, especially with the Hollywood version of it taking place just last night. Jay, let me I know the legal mind is moving very fast, and I can tell. What's your take on the Masvidal and Covington situation here?
The legal mind is throwing up right now. Like, seriously, seriously, the one thing you can't do, well, there's like 12, 15, 18 things you can't do. But the one thing a pro fighter can't do is walk up on a pro fighter somewhere outside of the cage and bust him in the chops. You can't do that. I mean, that's just, I mean, that's the be all end all. It's what makes it surprising to me is that Colby Covington will probably is, or by the end of his career, will be the most accosted fighter outside of the cage. I would assume, because you remember the Verdum boomerang incident. I feel like there wasn't, didn't Ali Abdelaziz throw hands with him in like a buffet or something?
Yeah, him
So,
and Kamaru ran up on him in a Vegas
yeah.
buffet. Yep.
Yeah, it's just a big issue here that the UFC seems to kind of ignore and let go. That there has been nothing about it. There's been no word. There's been no statement. There's been not even a yeah, we're looking into it that I've heard. And I don't know. I'm just a media member that covers the UFC on a weekly basis. So you figure there would be a statement at least. Uh, I I always have to be surprised because cooler heads have to prevail because the alternative is not just financial and issues like that, but criminal activity that goes down here. So Jorge Masvidal obviously will not be thrown in jail or thrown in prison for 15 years, which is the statute that goes for felony aggravated battery, along with the fact that the alleged assailant, Jorge Masvidal, was wearing a mask and a surgical mask and a hood, and there that is an actual circumstance that boosts the offense up a tick in Florida. But in the age of COVID, he was actually wearing a COVID mask. So how do you proceed with that one? That's a really gray area. We don't know how
That,
that's going to.
that means he's definitely not getting a pardon from DeSantis.
Yeah, but at the same time, yeah, Florida has no mask mandate, so maybe it's somebody trying to skirt the system. It defies description when a fighter strikes somebody outside of their legal, allowable, paid for, you know, it's their job. It'd be like me wanting to take my own work home with me while you do, but it's just I'm trying to put words together that aren't. Are you kidding me? Because it's so dumb. And at the same time, I was the guy who said there's no bad blood, there's no beef, there's no nothing. They're pals. This is all one bit. But when you punch a guy in the face and break his fancy $90,000 Rolex, according to the court records, maybe it's starting to get real. I don't know. Ant, is this still? Are we being punked?
No, we're not being punked. Like this is to be in the room at the post fight presser for UFC 239 after Masvidal settled his beef with Ben Askren in record setting fashion. To see him, just say, hey, if I see him in Whole Foods, it's on. Like I still don't like this guy. I still want to beat him some more. He's the kind of guy I believe him. I definitely believe that he meant exactly what he said, and he proved himself. Now, I'm certainly not condoning that. That's not the smartest thing to do. It's not the wisest course of action for a variety of reasons. Being he's a father. Um, you'd like to not be in jail so you can be with your kids, especially if it's over something stupid like this. When you're talking about like Cain Velasquez's incident, that's a whole nother level because
Yeah.
that is something so heinous, so enraging that creates a tidal wave of emotions that the average person thankfully has no idea what it's like. And it makes more sense to act out of character and go pursue unnecessary violence in that scenario. But when you're talking about two guys jaw-jacking, saying ridiculous things to one another, and you had your opportunity to hurt him in the cage, and the results were the results, running up on him, a few weeks later is not going to do anything positive at all. And especially, you just signed this big contract. You just
You
signed this. Yeah.
yeah,
Just
just
signed.
you
the-
made, but you're making a point that I wanted to kind of come around to.
Too.
Jorge Masvidal did not run up on Covington and punch him because Covington talked shit about his family. He
Right.
ran up on Covington and punched him because he lost the fight.
Yes.
If he had beat Covington and Covington kept talking,
Yes.
he would have
Yes.
probably just shrugged. So it becomes a lot less admirable, and all the people that are calling this street justice and kind of lionizing Masvidal for this, just keep in mind that Masvidal assaulted Covington mostly because he got embarrassed in the fight.
Yes. That
That
is
sounds a lot
exactly
less
right.
cool than I stuck up for my family's honor because I'm really from the street.
Like, he was saying these things in the lead up to the fight. And let's not forget here, there is precedent for UFC to take action. There's a certain gentleman that currently fights for Bellator, same as Paul Daly. And after his very disappointing fight against Josh Koscheck, he proceeded to walk up and he's still in the cage after the fight was over and punch Koscheck in the side of the head. UFC banned him for life. They had the opportunity to re-sign him, and Dana stuck to his guns and said, no, he's out. Jorge Masvidal has not done this once. Remember, Leon Edwards got a busted eye, that big cut right at the end of Edwards' fight. Wasn't he headlining against Gunnar Nelson? I think that was the fight card. I believe anyway.
It was Masvidal, Till, and Gunner and Edwards were the
Edwards, yeah,
co-main.
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Edwards has just finished fighting Gardner Nelson, and Masvidal assaulted him backstage. We can't assume that UFC fighters are that's just I kind of knew that was coming. And you don't want to become the fighter where you go, well, that's going to come, because you can't have that. You can't have, and this is going to be a conversation we're going to probably turn over into something else. You can't walk down somebody in the middle of the street or on a stage and bust them in the face because you don't like what they're saying. You can't. Like, skipping past the defensible whatever, words are not actionable. You can't, generally speaking, in the law, there are so few words and so few states that actually enforce this. Words are not enough to draw physical altercations from them. Masvidal has done this twice. The UFC will probably sell this for a rematch when they themselves banned a fighter for life because he did it in the cage that night. This is a guy who presumably in Masvidal, allegedly, because we're still hammering things out, tracked Covington's Instagram. Covington posted pictures about him in this Papi Chulo, or I think it's Papi Chulo Steakhouse or whatever, the steakhouse in Miami. He had posted about that at the restaurant, and Masvidal must have seen them and gone to that restaurant and busted him in the chops, according to the reports. What are we doing here? If the UFC does nothing, what should the UFC do? Actually, I'll ask you guys.
Before I answer
Please.
the steakhouse, I didn't even get the steakhouse is called Papi Chulo.
Papi. I mean, I know it's Papi something.
I mean, it would
It's
be
like-
the most Miami thing ever.
Yeah, I
So
mean, like a steakhouse called Pimp Daddy that is golden.
I'm looking.
if it is exactly the kind of tacky ass sounding place that like Colby Covington would go.
Papi steak, Papi.
That's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, Papi steak restaurant, I guess.
I'm allow me to. I'm kind of playing devil's advocate to an extent, but I'm also kind of divided minds. Not so much on the Masvidal thing, because that seemed very clear cut. Ben's analysis that this was because he lost the fight is very true, in my opinion. But I am with words having consequences. You cannot say things to people and not expect some level of reaction. And someone can overreact, but damn, you should have expected a reaction. Colby Covington has been playing a very, very dangerous game for quite some time. Like, you think about the ugly things he said about Kamaru Usman's family. as far as his father's situation. Think about what he said about entire cultures and races and political movements and all sorts of things that he has voiced his opinion on, and whether that's really his opinion or not is besides the point. He has presented it as him, even if it's some sort of scripted personality. Sometimes you got to answer for that. That's not condoning the actions of taking these words and using it to deck someone. Not condoning it, but not saying that it wasn't the most surprising thing in the world. There's a reason why that could have been an I'm not surprised this week,
Yeah.
because I'm genuinely not surprised that his words finally caught up to him. Now I know, and we can draw some parallels to what happened at the Oscars last night between Will Smith and Chris Rock, but I think that's probably more of a situation where someone is mad about something said about their family and reacts in the moment, as opposed to stalking their Instagram and then running up on them, which kind of brings the situations into different lights, although they're very closely related.
Go
I
ahead,
don't
Ben.
think that we're talking about mutually exclusive takes on this or reactions.
Right.
It's possible to think that Colby Covington is an odious person and got what had been coming to him for quite some time, while saying, yeah, but at the same time, the the person who finally stepped up and did it still has to face the consequences of their actions. Like, just if you believe in like the rule of law, then you have to believe that these protections apply to people that you despise. I think Colby Covington's a despicable person. And as you point out, and it's at a certain point, it doesn't really matter whether it's a persona or not. He's throwing these things out there and he has made them his brand. So yeah, like, he's on some level, I'm glad he got punched in the face. But at the same time, there's a reason that he's not just mobbed and assaulted everywhere he goes by hundreds of people.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
I'm sorry, Jay. I didn't mean to step on your toes there. I'm reminded of a case that actually just got the sentencing went out. I want to say about 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's a young man in Florida. A wonderful place to be, who worked at a fast food establishment. Was a black man called the N word by a old racist white customer, punched him in the face. The guy fell, cracked his head, and died. And as a result, he's given a very light sentence, based on the fact that another man's life was taken. Um, I'm not gonna lie, you guys won't be surprised at all. When that story happened, I laughed. And I hope that guy is rotting in a horrible place, that passed away, and fuck him and everyone who thinks like him. Um, but you can't just punch people in the face. But I probably would punch someone in the face if they called me. In fact, I've had incidents in my life where I did. Never mind. So Jay, before I say something that I shouldn't.
I mean, there's a reason. I mean, Ben touched on this right at the very end where he was saying there's a reason that nobody else steps up on them and punches them and strikes them or accosts them or whatever the actual things may be. Because I'm not sure how the wrist, there was an abrasion on his wrist according to the report, and the watch was broken and or damaged. Uh, there's a reason why nobody else does this, because yes, there's a time and a place for that. If every fight that has bad blood and trash talk ended up resulting in this afterwards, there'd be a real big problem. But you'll notice that there's been worse trash talk in past fights before that has not resulted at the end of the excursion
There's been
in
worse trash
bloodbath.
talk in Covington fights.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes, absolutely.
Like,
And there's yeah, go
nobody
ahead,
would
Ben.
have jailed Kamaru Usman
Right.
for running up on this man and hitting him with a bat.
Yeah, that based on the things he had said were just atrocious.
Yeah.
And Usman, had the time to handle it, and Masvidal had a very unique opportunity that humans don't have. That you can answer your accoster, your abuser, whatever word you want to use for somebody that shouts harsh things at you and talks about your family. He had the opportunity. He had 25 scheduled minutes to punish this man for speaking ill of his family. I wouldn't get that. You wouldn't get that for the stories you say. You don't get the ability to step in the cage and say, okay, you said these things, now it's time to go. He had the chance. And whether he won or did it or whatever he had his time in the gladiator cage, so to speak. You know, he had the justice opportunity. So that to then take matters into his own hands, according to the reports, no, can't have that. You can't have somebody doing that after the fight, just like you can't walk up on somebody and bust them in the face when they tell a joke that's kind of not that great.
So I mean, hey, we keep dancing around it. Let's just go ahead and
Please.
talk about it, man. Um, I'm going to get these jokes off. That's all I know.
Fire at will.
But what? But what was your initial reaction to this? Like of the aforementioned Will Smith Chris Rock incident, and will Scott Coker come calling?
Man,
It would
it was funny, wasn't it? I mean, at the moment, it was funny because it was the game of trying to figure out if it was real or not. Because it sounded good, and Will Smith yelling when the in the international audio where you could hear, he was not just saying the words, he was yelling loud enough so the people in the back could hear it. That it made you think it wasn't a bit. So that was an entertaining part in the pro wrestling style of it. And I don't know, Ben, what'd you feel about this whole thing?
Well, first thing I'm going to have to do is correct Ant, because if any promoter comes calling for these two, it's got to be Chatri Sitchatong, because he could pretend they weigh the same and have them fight. I, of course, was not watching the Oscars because why the hell would I? And so it just came up to me, you know, a couple minutes behind through Twitter, because I was scrolling Twitter for other things, which you could make the same argument. Why would I do that? And so the first 20 times I saw this thing, there was no sound. And I was like, oh, this is a work. You know, it just, it did the way, the kind of weird, like stiff way that Smith came up, where it like there was not like a whole lot of extension on it, and then the way Chris Rock just rolled with it, and then his head just snapped back to position. I was like, this looks like WWE shit. I'm surprised Will Smith didn't like stomp his foot on the ground to like make it sound louder. I was disabused of that notion once I saw clips of it with the sound, and of course once I heard the I think it was the Japanese broadcast audio where you could hear their exchange. No, that sounds like a real slap. This seems extra dumb to me. And because I first saw it on Twitter, I was exposed to all the Twitter takes on it, which quickly went, it would like it quickly went in every direction, like the Big Bang, but like just 4 dimensions, 360 degrees of stupidity. It was like a clown car that just kept disgorging dumber and dumber clowns, like, and they just kept coming out. And a lot of it touches on things that I'm not qualified to talk about, like, talking about Black women with alopecia, which I know there is a whole thing about that, with like I'm not qualified to speak to that. All I can speak to is the actual exchange that took place. The thing that's most surprising to me of all of it is that Will Smith was not removed from the venue. Like,
yeah.
What kind of show are you trying to put on here? And because of that, everybody else seemed to take their cues from him not being removed and him just kind of sitting there and going on to accept his own award later. And everyone else was like, oh, well, okay, it's just going to be a thing that we kind of make uncomfortable jokes about for the rest of the evening and keep cutting the camera to, different people and see how they're reacting. But it's all in light of Smith slapping Rock. Like, yeah, that, I think in hindsight, that's going to be one of the weirdest and most significant things about this, is that there was no consequence.
None.
Like,
Yeah.
how was he not removed from the room?
That just seems like the most basic thing to do in the scenario. And I'll say I wasn't watching the Oscars. I like you been. Why would I haven't watched award shows in years. Kind of wish I was watching this year though. But I saw the takes on Twitter and it was like, what the like? Okay,
Yeah.
My first reaction was like, because like you been, I didn't watch the Oscars live. I wish I did this year because this would have been the only time it was actually entertaining. This is the best moment since ODB stormed the Grammys. I I really I was just dumbfounded. It's like Will Smith did what? And seeing the videos, like, oh man, this really happened. Like he really did this. Shout out to the contingent on social media that is dead set on finding everything to be a fix. Shout out to you guys because your imaginations are wonderful. You see a man slapping the shit out of another one. You hear the sound. You see like his face alter. You see every little bit of this interaction, and somehow you still come to the conclusion that this was a work. Bravo. You guys should be screenwriters with the level of imagination that you show. Now as far as some of the takes, like I think just like MMA, I mean, this incidents like this in MMA, like it exposed a lot of stupidity that floats in the hearts of people. At the end of the day, this is an incident where neither party looks good. The Oscars look pretty bad because they just kind of let this happen. Will Smith obviously doesn't look too good because he had an emotional overreaction to a comedian's joke, and a comedian in Chris Rock doesn't look good because he said something really stupid and something that could be very hurtful. And then you look back, there was some history with him
Back in
saying some
2016,
saying some stuff about Jada before. um yeah, this was not because Chris Rock just said that one joke. There was a lot behind this, and we look at the dynamics of his marriage and how that's been played out in the public. This was the culmination of a lot of things, but you still have to control yourself. You still have to control yourself. You still have to contain your violence. As a husband, I don't know what I would do in that scenario. Part of me would want to slap the hell out of someone who's talking about my wife. Another part of me wants to like not potentially get locked up and not be there with my wife. um Part of me would want to do a more spectacular act of violence for the disrespect. But I will say about a slap in particular, a man slapping another man is them showing violence without trying to show real violence.
yes.
That's the way that you
Wasn't a punch.
yeah, you do violence on someone in the most disrespectful manner possible.
It's
Um,
almost Shakespearean.
yeah,
It is Shakespearean.
yeah, it's like you're not man enough for me to punch, is what that means. Um, yeah,
And
this is
chopping the bit right here.
yeah, I know Ben, go ahead, man, fire off.
Well, I just got to give props to my lovely wife here because she was at work during this, and so I'm sure she's just picking up bits of what is coming through news wise on her breaks. But she messaged me and she was like, maybe I've just been watching MMA out of the corner of my eye for too long, but these people who are saying he could have killed him is just ridiculous. And I saw a couple, like I saw like Judd Apatow
Judd Apatow,
tweet,
yeah.
but he deleted it, thank goodness,
Yeah.
before somebody slapped him. It's like,
It's like, see, you still alive, ain't you?
like I mean, considering that we're talking about this right on the heels of literally, one fighter breaking another man's face in public, it doesn't do anything for like Hollywood stereotypes, does it? Like just these people like clutching their pearls over this.
Yeah, it's so funny, the outrage over this, where like people say this is the worst
Oh my
moment ever
God.
in the history of the academy. Like, do you not remember like years after Roman Polanski
Yes.
left the country because he was banging a 13-year-old,
Hmm.
and by banging I mean raping,
Yeah.
that he won an award, and like the collective Hollywood community is just roaring applause and how brilliant this man is, while he is literally in exile from the U.S. government because he doesn't want to face statutory rape charges. And a man slapping another man because he didn't like what he said is the most horrible thing that's ever happened at the Oscars. Shut all the way the hell up. I've got bozos in my mentions and in my DMs just pleading their cases about, this is condoning abuse and blah blah blah. Please get a life. Find something better to do with your time.
To go after you personally because of the tweets that you made that are about somebody else committing violence on somebody else. I feel like he should be in someone else's DMs or not at all on Twitter.
Yeah,
It doesn't.
it's fun. It's really funny to me. I think this is another one of those instances where social media becomes the springboard for everyone to kind of let off their emotional baggage and whatever insecurities and stuff that they have, and just throw it out there and just throw it out there, and somebody's gonna hear me and somebody's gonna take me
Oh,
seriously, and it's really silly. At the end of the day, two men just they had a disagreement that got out of hand, and this is something that happens quite frequently in real life. If you ever left the house, you might. I bartended for like 13 years or something like that. I've seen enough to know that this is not that special. It really isn't. But I'm gonna get these jokes off though.
I mean, you have to at that point. I mean, I learned stuff about colleagues in the MMA media that are just absolutely horrified, and how dare he, and the violence, and he should be arrested, and all these things. And I learned things about people that watch cage fighting, and we're less upset about Colby Covington, Jorge Masvidal, that are losing their minds about this. I dare say I lost a little respect for some colleagues that I won't name, because their tweets are there, or they're deleted now because they came to their senses. But there's one thing that really did bother me about this. Chris Rock's a comedian. He's a great comedian. He's a top shelf, been around forever, top of his game, killer. Just killer shows. The kind of shows that you sit down there and you'll be crying because it's so funny. And he can just tear the roof off. I don't want this, and I'm afraid it might, to embolden people to be offended on behalf of somebody, or on them, or for themselves, and do this to comedians in real life, because we saw it on the biggest stage, and we saw this the kind of thing that I personally believe that Smith could have easily come up on him, I suppose, in the commercials, and have a private discussion about this issue. uh, I'm not of the mind that, that this was a good thing for anybody, because it wasn't. It was a bad thing for everybody. Every single party involved botched this one. The Academy Awards, the everybody, just, this was a bad scene.
Yeah. I think if you're, I'm sorry, Jay. You're still going. Apologize.
Oh no, it's just, my concern is that this is the kind of thing that people look at and go, oh, it's okay to do this, because I saw a big celebrity do this and literally nothing happened. Nothing happened. No, I mean, I'm down with Chris Rock not pressing charges or anything like that. That's fine. That's no issue, because again, that's his own decision. That's his own feeling and read into the whole situation. But it's one of those moments on TV where you look at and go, all the arguments about people wanting to do violent video games and violent movies are going to cause people to be violent. Well, that's obviously nonsense statistically and historically. But then there are sometimes these big moments that they don't cause it, but they embolden people to do it. You think of this in political speech, for instance, where there was mudslinging back in politics days, candidates trashing on each other, but things ratcheted up, and it took kind of like hold in the consciousness. And so people can say these horrible things to each other because it was socially acceptable on a big enough stage. There were no ramifications of it. Now, this is physical violence versus words, but I'm reading into it, but at the same time, I would never want a comic to feel that so-called chilling effect of being concerned to say something that would offend them because they didn't know about their condition, or did know about their condition, when they're telling jokes. That's their job. They're supposed to say mean things. I've been to comedy shows where I have personally been roasted, and it was hysterical. They were over the line comments. And okay, I'm in a comedy show. So to speak, I assume the risk. It's funny because it's a joke. and I don't love violence coming from that kind of thing, and violence towards comedians. I just feel like I can see somebody slapping a comedian because of a joke in like the Comedy Store in LA someday soon because they saw, oh, Will Smith did it, and I don't want that.
But you know what, Jay? I think you're bringing a lot of good points. But one thing that we need to remember too is that the people who are emboldened by this are stupid. If you,
Yes, but they wouldn't have done it beforehand, and
but
that's my concern.
But it's one of those things where it's almost I think it's a lighter version of the video games cause violence argument, where like if what it takes to send you over the edge to commit some act of violence is seeing a celebrity do it first,
Seeing a celebrity get away with it, I
yeah,
think is why it's the big
you were
difference.
already on the edge. You
Yeah.
were
Oh,
already
sure.
you were already teetering on the brink of insanity. If that's the catalyst, I'm in agreement with you about comedians. That, I mean, when we talked about Joe Rogan,
Yeah.
and his instance, the first thing, one of the first things I said about that was, hey, in the space of being a comedian, there should be a level of safety,
Yes.
to and a level of freedom to say what you got to say without, without necessarily real life kind of invading it. And I still hold that to be true. I think comedians shouldn't be assaulted on stage because somebody didn't like what they said. So I don't want that to get lost in translation at all. But I think what a lot of people aren't realizing here, in this case in particular, these are people who know each other,
Yeah.
and have known each other for years. There are personal dynamics that we are not privy to. So for everyone, this is another spinoff of like the whole Will and Jada relationship, how they were always held as this gold standard of a marriage, and oh, I want to love like this. Well, we're seeing a peek into their real life, and it's not that rosy.
Because they're just people. I'm sorry to
Exactly.
cut you off.
Oh no, but that's exactly, you're getting you're getting my point
Yeah.
here. They are just people. So when you look at these celebrities, there is more going on that you realize that you have the right to know.
Yeah.
Okay, you don't have the right to know all this stuff about their personal lives and what their interactions have been like and what's going on with them at the time. You don't have a right to know. So act like you don't know. Act like you don't know and conduct yourself accordingly. Um, I'm yeah, if this is the thing that makes you say, oh, I'm gonna see a comedian, I'm gonna punch him in the gut because I didn't like what he said, you are a buffoon. And you will just jump off a bridge now, please. Save us the oxygen, if that's how you think, because that base level of thought is only bad for society in general.
Can I say one last awful,
Yeah,
angry thing?
absolutely.
I lost a little more respect for my colleagues in MMA media, unrelated to the disrespect that I felt earlier because of the things I said last night, when there was coverage based on the fantasy betting odds of a boxing match between Will Smith and Chris Rock. That they were covering it, writing full stories. I get it, it's a hot button issue. Ha 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 ha. But Will Smith is minus 220 favorite. Are you kidding me? With boxing experience, with 50 pounds on Chris Rock and 4 inches and no, it's like 6 inches of reach, 6 inches of reach and like 7 inches of height. 220? Go bet the house on that. No, that's all. I had to make it light, but still. But even
Yeah,
Triller couldn't afford that one, and Triller makes money out of nowhere.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, this has been like a fascinating, this is one of those moments where I'm glad social media exists, so you get a peek more into the way people are thinking and stuff. But let's just simmer down.
Yeah.
It's a disagreement between two men.
And everybody, and I mean this as everybody, friends and people, strangers alike, was so in a rush to make a condemnation or a statement, or like, the companies that'll have the black background and the white text of we stand for this, and Reebok does not believe in this, that kind of thing from people. I don't have to I mean, I do this because we're talking on the show, but on Twitter, other than a weird joke or reference like, wow, life is strange here, I why would I, the royal I, have to have a take on this matter and have release a statement or have my thoughts go out there because I believe this is atrocious or this should be whatever? Who cares? Who cares? we talk about this in our weekly show because we love each other and we have a lot of fun talking and we make some really good points and we have a conversation about it. That's different than projecting something that you think people want to hear, because I would talk to somebody in private and that wouldn't be the public statement that they released. And I don't get it. Maybe it's 2022 and I don't know what the heck social media is, but I feel like that only made things worse.
Yeah, there was a rush, I think, for everybody to
Yeah.
make it about themselves to
Thank
whatever
you,
extent
Ben.
they
That's
could.
exactly right.
Mhm.
That's
You know,
exactly right.
I mean, there's a derisive term that a lot of honestly a lot of like right wing social media commentators will use that I actually think is kind of appropriate in this situation, which is virtue signaling, where any story you just got to make sure to get out there and brand yourself with how you want people to see you about it. And I mean, I've said nothing on social media about this because it's out of my wheelhouse. Why would my opinion matter at all, let alone more than anybody else's? I mean, I made a few comments about Covington and Masvidal just because that is in my wheelhouse. I'm very familiar with, their story. So I said a few things from a place of knowledge of the situation, but I wasn't in a rush to, and I didn't really like say anything that that really branded me as falling really far on one side or the other of it. And about this I've said nothing at all. Like, why would I? Like, why try to make this like stupid clown car of a news story about myself?
I tell you what, I rushed to get that Photoshop of Will Smith's face on the Vibe Death Row cover. I
Well,
rushed to do that.
that was pretty funny.
Hey,
Thank you.
rushing out the jokes and photoshops, that's okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm a rush to get these jokes off. That's for sure. But I do think. I mean, we're regular guys that we have opinions on certain things, and that's what
Yeah.
social media is for. Just go ahead, speak your piece, but that's your piece. Like,
Yeah.
I don't give a shit about someone's other situation and, injecting whatever you saw and knock it off, man. Just knock it off. At the end of the day, Will Smith don't know you. He don't care about you. Chris Rock the same. Like it's not that big of a deal.
They don't need our defense
Yeah, they'll be fine.
or
They'll be fine.
support.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and society isn't going to crumble because of this. And
I do.
if society was going to crumble because of something bad going on in Hollywood, we would have died a long time ago. So
Society might crumble from the just torrent of. Does that mean that Will Smith is going to have to go live with his aunt and uncle in Bel Air? Those jokes are killing me.
oh
I'm so tired of them already.
yeah, the first two were good, and then it was like,
Yes.
all right,
Yes, that's exactly right.
let's not flip the theme song anymore.
Like
Um,
there's a comic online. His name is the Oatmeal, Matt Inman, and he draws just incredible spot on things sometimes. And it's this simple 4-piece comic of a guy that plops down in front of his computer and he opens it up, and like from the screen it's like blah 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 blah. It's all the memes coming at you, flying at you, and as they blah, 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 they keep coming, and he's drowning in these things. That's how you feel like after this kind of content drops.
all right. Well, I think we've shown this topic more than enough love. So let's go ahead and keep things pushing because we do actually have mixed martial arts to talk about and not fights at steakhouses and award shows. All right. So the main event for the UFC this weekend took place between Curtis Blaydes and Chris Daukaus. Curtis Blaydes made quick work of him, a fast second round finish. As Jay said, no takedowns involved. You think Curtis Blaydes is going to get his wish on having that interim title fight with Francis Ngannou on the shelf, supposedly?
I think it's probably the best fight to make. I think Blaydes versus Gane for an interim title makes a lot of sense because they're both in kind of a similar situation where you can argue they're the number 2 and 3 guys in the division, but both of them need to prove something before anyone's going to want to see them fight Ngannou again. In fighting Blaydes, Gane can prove that getting taken down with ease over and over again by D1 Ngannou was a fluke, and he's worked on it, or he's worked on it. Similarly, Blaydes' win over Daukaus, it felt like kind of a statement thing. By the eyeball test, his striking has come along quite a bit in the 3 years since the last time he fought Ngannou, but soundly outboxing a boxer without resorting to his wrestling at all felt like kind of a statement. He could do things in a fight against Gane that would make me somewhat more interested to see him fighting Ngannou as well. So I think, I hope he does. I know the question was, will he get it? I don't know. I think he should.
I respectfully disagree, because that means the winner is one fight away from fighting Francis Ngannou, if the timetables hold up and there isn't a defense of the interim title. Because that means that Ciryl Gane learns and he's done enough and he gets past Blaydes. That means he has won exactly one fight to get a rematch with Ngannou, which is a very possible outcome if he can make Blaydes stare at him as Ciryl Gane can do to guys to kind of freeze them in the headlights, so to speak. And if Blaydes gets it, then that means, yes, we're 3 years removed from his his second knockout loss to Francis Ngannou, and he'll be 3 wins removed from Derek Lewis chin checking him. But I still don't like that. I don't want to see it a rematch for Ngannou with either of these two guys. And an interim title would set that up. I'm still all aboard the Tuivasa Aspinall interim title wagon because it means it's a fresh matchup for the champion. I'm not opposed to the fight. I just don't want it to mean Ciryl Gane Blaydes. The next fight is Ngannou.
Jay, I'm in 100% agreement with you on that. I just don't want to get into a scenario where we're seeing a trilogy fight between Ngannou and Blaydes, or seeing an instant rematch, at least for Ngannou, of Ciryl Gane. Like, I want to see something fresh. I want to see there's fresh bodies out there that are putting in work right now. Put this fight together by all means, but let something fresh happen. And quite frankly, if we're handing out interim title shots to people who recently lost to Ngannou, I'd put Stipe down before those other two gentlemen, because at least he has a win over Ngannou. So that's where I stand on that one, man.
Like, you look at the lineup, and this is my personal, I would like to see these fights, but I don't want to see the implication necessarily. Gane Blaydes, I like that fight. It tells you a lot about Gane, tells you a lot about Blaydes. That's good. Stipe versus Derek Lewis, I like that fight. Coming back to see if they can make it back, and the winner is not far away. And Tuivasa Aspinall, 2 hotshot prospects, winner gets the top spot. That's how I like the lineup personally.
I like that. Yeah. All right, fellas. So we've got Alexa Grasso with a serious dominant win, and I believe it's a co-main event against Joanne Calderwood. Do you think she's ready for Valentina Shevchenko? And really, is anyone? We gotta say. I mean, I feel like it's an obligatory question every time there is a women's flyweight fight that has some title significance. Are we giving the same answer? As Alexa Grasso ready for what likely is next for her?
Okay. It doesn't matter how long the win streak is or how dominant the fighter is, how much of an obvious all-timer you can already tell they are within their own time. And, unless you're Khabib and you retire in your absolute prime, you're going to lose sooner or later. Like, I knew that Fedor Emelianenko had been cruising for an upset for probably 2 years before he actually lost. I would never have guessed that Fabricio Verdum was going to be the guy to do it. He seemed like the least likely of all of them. I figured it was going to be a fight with Overeem or something. But same thing with Amanda Nunes. Like, yes, she was going to lose at some point. I would never have guessed that Juliana Pena was going to be the one. So it's in full understanding of the fact that I could be wrong about this, but Alexa Grasso is not going to be the one to upset Valentina Shevchenko. Of anybody who is currently in the flyweight division, I think Manon Fiorot might be the one who poses the biggest threat to Shevchenko at some point. But even so, she's a 10-fight veteran right now. And while she did have a kickboxing career before her MMA career, she's not one of these people who has 150 kickboxing bouts under her belt. She had a kickboxing career, but she's already a better mixed martial artist than she ever was a kickboxer. She could use more seasoning. Whatever threat you think she poses to Shevchenko now, it'll probably be greater in 12, 18 months after she has a couple more fights under her belt. So Valentina Shevchenko, if she gets past Tayla Santos this summer. Her next fight is either going to be someone who is not ready, or it's going to be kind of an unappealing rematch because that's the point she's at with this division. If it's going to be somebody who's not ready, I would rather it be Grasso, who is at least more of a finished product than Fiorot or Aaron Blanchfield or somebody. Like Grasso might just have to be the sacrificial lamb here.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Shevchenko, what she's done to the division. She mauled going in terms of the UFC's flyweight rankings, mauled Andrade, mauled Chukagian, tossed around Lauren Murphy, beat up Jennifer Maia and lost a round. Next is fighting Tayla Santos, and Vivian Rougeau is next on the list. Number 7 is Joanne Calder.
Well,
I know
Vivian Rougeau is going to get knocked off by Chukagian.
Yes, and that's a tough part for. Well, no, Chukagian's fighting Amanda Ribas, I thought.
Oh no, yeah, I'm sorry. You're right. You're right. No, Araujo's fighting Andrea Lee.
Yes. But Grasso will step over number 7 Wood. So in terms of the rankings, it's either her or Fiorot or Fior, I guess is the right way to say it. I spoke French for many years and I for some reason can't get that. But she beat Maia, who was ranked number 4, so you'd assume she'd be higher ranked. So the UFC is going to throw that to her. Yeah, it's probably going to be rematches or turtles all the way down because they're just what do you do for Valentina Shevchenko because she's not going to fight Nunes at 135 now unless they have Shevchenko Pena 2. If Pena gets by Nunes, oh boy, yeah, that's not going to work. This division is in right now a kind of a churning over contenders spot to see who the next one's going to be, and I really like that Fior called out Chukagian. That's a good fight, a litmus test, but at the same time, it could easily kill a contender to set up a rematch that no one wants. So it's that tough. If we get lucky, if we roll the dice that Fior can get past Chukagian, that is a rightful contender. But all she has to do is get past one of the most, efficient kickboxers out there. And I guess it also makes it difficult because this division historically has a very low finish rate. So the puncher's chance, the any heavyweight can be the champion because of one big shot, just doesn't really exist at flyweight. You have more of a chance to catch a submission than to catch a big right hand, generally speaking and historically speaking. So Shevchenko, she's looming large, and I don't know what they're going to do with her.
Yeah, I mean, this is the problem with dominant champions. If they are that good, it makes everyone else look bad. So we'll see, but I'm with you guys. I don't think Grasso's the one. But yeah,
It was interesting for champions like John Jones or GSP or Silva because they mostly had fresh matchups. The rematches that were brought up were kind of earned for the most part, I think.
right. I agree. Yeah.
And as in this division, it feels like they're not because Chukagian will be coming off of, say Chukagian gets past Amanda Ribas. She's what? I for some reason can't seem to keep track of how many wins or losses she's had. I think she'll be on a 4-fight win streak if she gets past Ribas. Is that enough after Jessica Andrade throttled her at the end of 2020? I don't know.
Yeah,
But
and
probably.
Yeah, the thing is, it's going to be out of necessity because you don't have a big roster to draw from. So it is what it is. Like pretty much this division is going to run like this until it doesn't, until that Juliana Pena moment, or until Shevchenko just decides that she wants to go do something else or whatever. Like that's probably what's going to happen. So. But speaking of flyweight, men's flyweight division had some serious movement. Kai Kara-France did the thing against Askar Askarov. Is he your dark horse contender for the flyweight strap, or do you think he needs something else to put him in the mix?
It's not even dark horse. He's the front runner. Uh, Askar Askarov was the number 3 guy behind Davis Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno in the UFC's own rankings, in Sherdog's rankings. Kai Kara-France beat him uncontroversially. He should be the next guy. I think it's as simple as that.
Yeah, count me double for that if the alternative is the part 4.
They're already doing that. It's already
Yeah.
it's already set, and
Yeah,
I learned that the other day, unofficially from an anonymous UFC source, that's go that number 4 is really totally happening. It has to be, but if that fight, if Figueiredo and Moreno fight again in a couple months, it looks like that means that Kai Kara-France will have to sit on the shelf or not fight for like 6 months. I don't think he wants to do that. I think he wants to keep busy. So that puts him in a predicament. Does he fight Alexander Pantoja? I don't think they've met yet. Would that be suitable? I don't know. It doesn't sound that appetizing, because to me he's a contender. Because remember how I just said how flyweight doesn't have that kind of surprising sneaky power that'll the puncher's chance not even, but they can get that one shot. Kai Kara-France has that. How do I know that? 2 of his last 3 wins are by clean knockdown to TKO or KO in the case of Rogerio Bontorin. So yeah, he's my guy for, I don't know, after Moreno and Figueiredo fight for like the 6th time, then we'll slot him in.
Oh, maybe it's better if I unmute before I start
50-50.
talking. Yeah, it happens. So, all right, gentlemen. Now let's keep things pushing here. One FC, well, not one FC, with just one championship. It's still a bad habit. One championship put on 20 fights. Depending on where you are in the world, it was either Friday or Saturday, or is it Saturday, Sunday? I can't remember. I've been half asleep for like half of my life. So
Into Saturday.
into Saturday. Okay. Into Saturday. Okay. So what did you make of the card overall? And are we talking event of the year by some of the takes of the people who watched it live?
It's tough to call. I mean, if a 20 fight card is your card of the year, then your favorite restaurant is probably a buffet. That's what I got to say about that. The highlights of this card were as impressive and as enjoyable as anything that's happened this year, right up there with UFC London. And it did offer a lot of the best of what One Championship has to offer. I've always enjoyed their willingness to put kickboxing, Muay Thai, and MMA and grappling on the same card. I enjoy that. I enjoy their willingness to go in for kind of weirdness like mixed rules bouts. But at the same time, in the headliner, it had 2 of their best fighters, 2 of their most marketable fighters actually making fucking weight on camera and then fighting each other and having a great fight. Like, why does One Championship not do that more often? They would be a lot more fun to talk about. But no, they make things difficult for people with brains. No, it's a candidate for events of the year. But like I say, like there was also a lot on this card that wasn't all that great. It's hard for me to call a 15-hour extravaganza my card of the year.
Jay, did you get a chance to watch it live, or you I know you were doing play-by-play for like American broadcasts the next day, so I know you weren't. But did you see the event in its entirety?
Not in its entirety. There's parts that I'm still catching up on from the lead card or whatever the heck they call those things now, the part 2 or whatever, where it kind of slowed down and there was a whole rash of decisions and yellow cards and yellow cards and yellow cards. Yeah, I can't put it on my event of the year list because it was an 11-hour 20 fight event. That's even somebody who can fast forward and not be subjected to this. I feel that it was a slow card, and I say that knowing that there were only a couple fights that went the distance, 15 minutes distance. So that means there were like grappling matches that went at the 11-minute mark, and there were kickboxing matches that went 9 minutes. So if you add up the fight time, it's only a couple hours, which means that there's 5, 6, 7, 8 hours of filler and hype and talk. I can't do it. But that said, the fights themselves, the ones that mattered, were very interesting, except for Mighty Mouse Rodtang. I honestly, I love the idea, but I hated the reaction to it, because that fight, and maybe we'll talk about this in a couple minutes, did not improve Mighty Mouse's legacy by winning a mixed rules match with Rod Tang, where he choked him all the way to sleep. I didn't do anything. That wasn't the biggest fight of his career. And as somebody who has ranted about this before, one championship, I have to listen to the commentary to follow along some of the certain things. I'm a commentary on kind of guy, even to my own detriment. And this commentary was to my detriment. Every fight was not a war, quote unquote. This was not the greatest event in martial arts history. This was not an incredible action-packed scrap as both fighters get yellow carded for timidity, for not engaging, and there's long stretches of nothing where there's one fighter on top. This is not 15 minutes of all-out war. The hyperbole that I have railed about before was ramped up to 11, and it took away from the experience in a way that it shouldn't have. And I feel for the people who are new to one and go, oh my God, I am tired hearing Michael Chiavello freak out. I like Michael Chiavello. I'm listening to him for 20 years. Mitch Chelson, not as much, but I'm tired after watching those fights. Not from the fights themselves, but from the commentary. And I don't want to be tired after an event. The fights themselves, great for the ones that mattered. But the event itself and the procedure and the ceremony and Ngannou getting snubbed by Chatri because he over celebrated because he was happy to win, I don't know, a championship, and Chatri to kind of throw the belt over his shoulder like whatever, I don't care. And actually this was caught on camera, Chatri berating Ngannou for being too excited, and he should have been respectful and composed for winning a championship over a tough guy. One gets in its own way too much for me to go, this is the best I've ever seen. And if you check my Twitter, you'll see one particular call out of an unnamed Twitter user who decided to go, I hate this event. This event's the worst. This fight is the worst. Oh my God. And then a couple hours later, this is the best event I've ever seen. I have tears in my eyes while I'm typing this. Shut up. Just let the event be what it is. Doesn't have to be the best, doesn't have to be the worst. Was it a great one card in when matched up to other one shows? Sure. But everything else, just come on, guys. Give me a break. Give them a break. Give the trillions watching around the galaxy a break.
I wouldn't take it, but it still does kind of hurt my feelings that one championship never tries to send me a check when I'm talking shit about him.
Yeah, I'd be rich by now. Like we'd be doing this show in like mink coats and stuff. If that were the case, like as I said last week, like the timing of this being a card that was airing live from from the other side of the world, it just was not going to be compatible with the lifestyle managing this guy and his little sister. And on top of that, it was pretty rough week sleep wise for them. So I slept maybe, I don't know, maybe 14 hours all week. And so yeah, I definitely was not going to stretch myself to watch this live when it happened. I think I kind of did it the right way. I watched, and I'm still not done. There's a couple other fights that I want to see. Like I've watched a fight here and there, and I've been very entertained by what I'm seeing. But the experience is totally different when you're watching it live, and they have the intermissions, and they've got like that. They still, and they have that like weird heartbeat sounding drum that's just going all the time. Do they still do that? Um, and I watched it without the sound. The little bit of sound I caught was on the John Wayne Parr fight, and I'm hearing Mitch Chilson talk about how exciting and how close of a contest this is, and I'm like, not quite, fam. So I turned that commentary off real quick because one commentary has not been good historically. So, event of the year is just if it takes that long to get through it and it's that slow pace and it's that dragged out, I mean, we're laughing at that suggestion. So this will fall into the one style hyperbole if this is the event of the year and you're throwing exclamation points after everything. Fun stuff, certainly fun stuff to watch. It was some great fights on the card, but a great event as a whole, no.
If they compacted it and sliced it down a little bit, not necessarily cutting fights out of it, but cutting the broadcast, maybe we talk about that, because the product itself, that's the thing we always talk about. The product that one delivers, Muay Thai and little gloves, all of those things we do genuinely, legitimately enjoy. If they could put that without the pomp and circumstance behind it, I could get on board with this wagon. And if they actually, televise weigh-ins all across the board and not just fake that 8 fighters missed weight and or missed hydration, and every fighter suddenly made weight and was fully hydrated, even though fighters that missed weight. So let's see, hold on, let's do the math. A fighter missed weight and was dehydrated, extremely dehydrated. The next weigh-in ceremony, they cut to continue to make weight, successfully made weight, and were fully hydrated. How does that work? I don't know. I'm only a math guy. So yeah, get out of your own way, guys. Listen to me, one intern. Get out of your own way.
Is that the guy still spying on the broadcast? Um, wow, it just never ceases to amaze me. Well, we're going to do something here called Quick Hits, a segment that we always do, but it's going to be a little more dangerous today because my son just woke up from his nap, as you see right here. I gave him my phone so he could watch YouTube Kids to keep him calm, but I need my phone for this timer. So if we have a rambunctious guy slapping the microphone or trying to snatch my hat off, we know exactly what time it is. So Adonis, please let me borrow it. Daddy promises he'll give it right back to you. And we're just gonna go to the round timer app. Hey buddy, it's okay. It's okay. I promise. Dude, I promise I'm gonna give it right back to you. All right. So Jay, I'm gonna ask you first. Um hmm, let's just keep on the subject. After Mighty Mouse fight, actually, no, you already screw it. We'll keep on topic. After Mighty Mouse fought Rotang in a mixed rules bout, do you want to see more fights of this nature?
Despite what I said and how I didn't care about it, I do. Because it keeps fighters that shouldn't be in the title picture out of the title picture. It keeps them busy. It makes exciting fights. I would like to see the UFC, they're never going to, do this for fighters like Conor McGregor. Give him a fight that keeps him out of the picture. It's entertaining, it's fun, it's exciting and dramatic, and it keeps them busy. I would like it for that purpose, but not generally speaking like Triller.
All right. Oh, and respect for the clock.
I
Something
was
that
I was respecting the little man right there. That's what I was respecting.
oh yeah, man, this guy is quite the enforcer in the household. All right. Jay, let's mix things up a little bit. I want you to ask me a question here.
Well, I know that you got to see Matt Brown versus Brian Barberina on the broadcast,
Hmm.
and I'm sure you enjoyed it very much. Matt Brown at what, the tender age of 41, 41,
And a hard 41 years of life too. So
41, and yeah,
yeah.
41 and change. Yeah, 41 and change. Um, is it time for him to hang it up, or is there some, or uh, you know, I'll kind of switch the question. Is it time for Matt Brown to hang up his gloves, or does he still have something left in the tank?
I mean, I think he still has something left in the tank, but still hang it up. I mean, this was, granted, if him getting the win would have been the best, way to retire in his hometown, but man, it was a tremendous fight. He showed everything that makes him Matt Brown. He was still in his hometown. He got the love from the crowd. This is a proper time to hang it up. Save something for the rest of your life. And this man has not had the easiest 41 years on this earth. Preserve something for the rest of your life.
Nice.
All right. Um, so Jake, why don't you ask Ben a question
I
as
will be
well?
happy to ask Ben a question. UFC Columbus. This wasn't UFC Fight Night or UFC Vegas 67 or whatever it is. The UFC proved that after the gate numbers that it can pack arenas now, and I guess COVID's over apparently. Anyway, UFC can pack the arenas for fight nights, Ben. Why do you think they're going back to the Apex this year?
I don't think the UFC proved that it can pack arenas for fight night cards now. It proved that it could pack an arena in a city where it had not been for 3 or 4 years for a fight night card now. And to do that on a consistent basis, to find 15 or 20 cities that you can do that in, requires more geographical booking foresight than the UFC has shown. Like pre-COVID, we were already finding out that they were having a tough time getting geographically appropriate matchups into the right cities. I don't think they can do it.
Mm-mm.
Nice.
Very nice, very nice. All right, so let's go ahead and just ask the table.
Yeah.
Ben, I'll keep the floor for you here. Neil Magny tied GSP's record for most wins at welterweight. If he retired tomorrow, is that a Hall of Fame worthy career?
I will answer this from a Montgomery County guy to a Prince George's County guy. He is the Art Monk of MMA. The longevity is there. The numbers are going to be there. Was he ever the best receiver in the league? He was in the discussion for a few years. He had some good highlights, but generally just the ultimate blue collar hard hat guy. If Art Monk is in the Football Hall of Fame, then Neil Magny is a UFC Hall of Famer.
All right, and we got a few seconds left on the clock, and there we go. All right, Jay, ball's in your court now. Neil Magny, is this a Hall of Fame worthy career if he retired tomorrow?
The UFC puts a whole lot of stock in champions and title runs for when it comes to the UFC Hall of Fame. They need a hard hat wing. They need Jim Miller, brought to you by Jim Miller. They need the kind of Hall of Fame wing they can put in guys that never quite made the top, but who cares? They were wonderful. They were a blast to watch. Jim Miller, Donald Cerrone, Diego Sanchez, Joe Lozon, those guys. That's
Brown.
my Hall of Fame. Matt Brown. Absolutely, Neil Magny should be in that part of the Hall of Fame.
But you make a good point about the UFC caring about title.
Very much.
And I'm apologizing in advance for using Ant's favorite fighter as an example for this, but there was only one metric by which Rashad Evans had a better career than Neil Magny has had already, and that's the hardware on the shelf. He won his season of tough. He won the UFC belt. By every other metric you could think of, Magny has more of everything.
Yeah, Rashad Evans slander will not be tolerated on this show.
Slap me, Ant.
The man you're a little bit too big, and your wrestling experience is too extensive. No, thank you.
Could you imagine if Chris Rock shot for a takedown?
Oh my God, I would. Oh man, I wish
ankle pick a 52 like a 54-year-old man, ankle picking a 52-year-old man.
And
sign me up.
And the thing is, like, Chris Rock doesn't strike me as a punk. Like, this is a dude who grew up in the projects in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure he could scrap if he had to. So we might have seen something fun. That, maybe those odds aren't too bad, Jay. I don't know. We'll talk.
Weight classes exist for a reason, guys.
as Shinya Aoki found out. So let's keep things pushing here. I guess it's my turn to answer the question. So the clock will begin after I just preface it by saying Neil Magny, Hall of Fame, ? I'm gonna have to disagree with you, gentlemen. I do like Jay's premise though of the Hall of Fame having a hard hat wing, because that would be perfect for Neil Magny. But if we're talking Hall of Fame and you don't have a title reign at all, we're talking about signature wins and we're talking about big moments. Can you think of big Neil Magny moments with the stomping of Hector Lombard? Maybe. That's probably is that Hall of Fame worthy? I don't know.
I mean, you kind of think of the quintessential Magny performances are his losses. Maya tossing him and choking him out, and RDA tossing him and choking him out, and the fight with Ponzinibbio where he got punched out. You think of Neil Magny, yeah, his big wins are Carlos Condit. No, I mean, he's got good wins, but you just don't feel them.
Yeah.
Hector Lombard's got to be the one.
Yeah, that's got to be it. And I'm not thinking that's a Hall of Fame worthy win, and other than that, most of his wins have been guys who like Carlos Condit, as much
2020 Robbie Lawler.
Yeah, exactly. It's like guys that I think very highly of, but he met them at the tail ends of their career. So not too late for him to turn around. I think if Neil Magny gets himself to a title fight, okay, now we're talking. Now we can have that conversation a little bit more. But I mean, Art Monk references are always welcome on the show.
That's a real good one.
Very, very nice there, Ben. All right, fellas. So it's time to ask, a good question here. What surprised you over the course of the past week? And we like to preface that by saying this is the best titled segment in all of media history. I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons. So, gentlemen, share something that ironically surprised you, or ironically didn't surprise you, or actually did surprise you over the course of the past week. Ben, I'll begin with you. What's your I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons moment?
You know what? I'm not even going to take one today because we've already talked about so many of the things that surprised me. Curtis Blaydes winning the way he did. Obviously, the two unsanctioned acts of violence that we've already talked about. Like I'm all exhausted. My capacity for surprise is just completely burnt out this week. I passed the mic.
Wow.
Wow, very noble of you, sir. Jay, it's your time to shine. Which I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons moment.
I am shining, boys. Did you know that there was an event by the organization Combate Global that aired on Thursday this past week? Because if you didn't, you're not alone. Because they just kind of came back on Univision and Paramount Plus to show fights in Florida to start off 2022 with an event that I guess we being we the media, called Mexico versus USA, because there was not an event titled for this fight card. Why? Because Combate does not title its events anything more than episode 26, episode 29, episode what have you. There's no real pomp and circumstances, because what are you going to do? Put so and so 5-4 versus 9-6 fighter as the main event and go, yay, that's the main event. Combate America's what could have been and what used to be is a story about this, where you look at the roster and go, wow, that's a main card fight. And this is of no disrespect to the competitors involved, but there's clearly no intention by the organization to build anything, build a star, build a hype, build a championship, build anything other than to stage fights in terms of content. You figure the first show back would be a big show. It's a show that people forgot completely, and that's really too bad, because Combats tried to implement in Florida, by the way, this would be the first event in Florida to do so, implement open scoring, and failed miserably, showing on the broadcast 30-27 scores for round one, then on the other 30-27s for the other person. So the totals were like 57-57 going into round three. And you go, seriously? This is what happens? But it wasn't just broadcast things. No, the fighters had no idea of the scores that were issued. So this was a total failure in implementation. The one thing you're trying to trot out and be proud of. With that litany of typos on the broadcast, just an unwatchable product for certain times. And I don't mean that unwatchable in terms of quality. I mean, there was a span of time in the prelims where one could not watch the fights themselves. That you had to go online to Facebook and hope that there was a stream that you could pay $4 to watch, but maybe not. I don't really know. And there will be an article that will be coming out on Sherdog this coming week that chronicles some of the oddities and issues that Sherdog, Fight Finder, and the media have encountered covering Combate events, and it'll be called a name that you will very easily know it's talking about Combate. So I'm plugging that content ahead of time because you should read it, because I know my Twitter will not be quiet after that article comes out. So I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons, that Combate is back. Nobody knew, and the broadcast exploded.
That sounds like a fun time. Yeah, I saw like a highlight or something on, I want to say it was on Grabaka's uh, Twitter, and I was like, Combate? Like, I didn't know they were back yet. They just, yeah, this one just really flew under the radar. All right, well, my I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons moment continues the new tradition of fighters not just fighting one another in the cage, but also fighting crime. Melvin Manhoef, the former Strike Force fighter, current Bellator fighter, is now the subject. He was at home, I guess, and three burglars came in to his home in the Netherlands, and he proceeded to beat the crap out of them and scare them off. And also, as they fled, punched through the windshield of the car. He smashed the car window with his bare fist. Um, yeah, just don't run up on pro fighters like that, bro. Like, know who you're trying to burglarize.
That is terrifying.
That I mean, I like that is the idea of Melvin Manhoef charging at me in full on rage mode is, I mean, that makes me want to pee myself.
Oh, I mean, we talked a year or so ago about the guy that tried to carjack Derek Lewis. Like 6'3", 275-pound Derek Lewis coming at me while I'm trying to jimmy his car is less frightening to me than breaking into an apartment and seeing 5'8", 197-pound Melvin Manhoef just get up with like probably still got his spiked dog collar on from his K1 days. And I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah. I mean, that's got to be terrifying. Like,
Yeah.
like what runs through your mind as that burglar
Your
or
life,
those burglars? Like,
your life
Oh,
runs
yeah.
through your.
and especially that there's three of them, and then it's like you just going to sacrifice your man. You're like, well, if he gets him first, then I can get away. But he caught them all, and
I don't have to be faster than Melvin. I just have to be faster than my slowest homie.
yeah. Oh man, what a bad day to be a criminal. What a bad day.
When he puts that giant fist through the window without going, because you see it in action movies, but that's not a thing you can do. It's really hard to punch through a
Yeah,
car
people
window.
break their hands trying to
Yeah.
do that very often.
And I don't believe from the reports it was thump, 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 thump. It was gadoosh. And then, yeah,
Wow.
I'd have a wet spot.
Yeah, like of course, this incident ended far more tragically, but I'm reminded of Sean Taylor, the former Washington football team safety who was killed in a burglary, and I just imagine like the image that his assailants had, him waking up with a machete in his hand and charging at them, and I'm very thankful that those burglars were not armed or did not have the time or the opportunity to pull out any weapons if they did. But shout out to Melvin Manhoef defending the castle. So he's like the Netherlands Will Smith. All right, so let's I mean, we would normally preview an event, but there isn't a major event going on this weekend, gentlemen. So we got a week off or weekend off. Like, Jay, play-by-play guy, what are you gonna do?
This has been a very difficult stretch. The UFC historically has not been known to stage marathons like anything over 5 or 6 weeks in a row. Just before, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, it didn't. Even on years where it staged more fight cards, like there was one that had 42 on it or something like that. Uh, it would have events on Friday and Saturday, so it would be able to you could put it together, or it would have the two events in the same day in a world apart. They'd have one in Singapore, they have one in Georgia, that kind of thing. This is not that. This is a constant weekly barrage that is absolutely exhausting, and I am very grateful to have some time to not cover this sport because there's no major events happening. I do not care about PFL happening this weekend because PFL is running a fight card where every single fighter is making their professional MMA debut. That's not major MMA. That's less noteworthy than B2 fighting series in Kentucky. So I'm not going to be covering any fights. Instead, I might sit down and watch something because the weather's going to betray me. There was snow on the ground this morning. Yeah, no kidding. There's this show called Euphoria that I've heard a whole lot about. That I've heard some real intense, interesting discussions about. So I might give that a shot this week and see what happens.
Nice. Ben, what do you got planned this weekend?
I'm getting on a plane. I am flying to Salt Lake City. My oldest son is getting married. Congratulations in advance to Mike and his frankly fantastic fiance Kenzie. Good on him for keeping up the Duffy family tradition of marrying well above ourselves. And I can't wait to see them and a lot of the family that will be rolling into town for that.
All right. Well, congrats, Mike and Kinsey. That's big news, man. So, let me ask you this, man. Did you plan with your son to have the wedding on a non-UFC weekend?
I told him, you want to see me there? You best no. Just, I actually asked for the week off from Sherdog like well in advance of realizing that it was going to be a week off anyway. So that works because that means I'm just gonna have to preload the queue with fewer articles, to tide things over while I'm gone. I'll actually take a week off, I think.
See, that strikes. It strikes very near and dear to my heart. As I said many times on this show, like I got married while UFC 217 was taking place, and like had the event card been announced just like a week later, oh, we're having our wedding on a different day. But yeah, I was stuck. So yeah, here I am.
I kind of like the idea if I got married and they were on a UFC card, I might have a big screen with it on.
Well, one of my groomsmen, obviously one of my closest friends, he was watching the fight on his phone during the reception, and he was like sneaking away from his wife, and he's like sneaking away in the trees because we got married in a we got married in an outdoor ceremony, and he like snuck away somewhere in the trees and would come back and be like. It's like TJ Dillashaw just got knocked out, or the TJ Dillashaw just knocked out Cody Garbrandt. He'd walk away, he'd go back in the woods, and he go, George St. Pierre just, I was getting the update per fight from him as he vanished during the reception. But yeah, so I get and TJ, our old colleague, he has a story about getting married on like I think a Brock Lesnar fight, and like half the wedding just left when the card was about to start. So,
I mean that's right. I mean he's from Minnesota,
yeah.
You're gonna lose your crowd when Brock is fighting. Got to rep the Golden Gophers.
So not only MMA people, but like Minnesota people, just everyone left. So I mean, at least that means they could have eaten their own cake. Like I barely got to touch my cake, but anyway, but this weekend, man, obviously I'm gonna be hanging out with the kids and the wife. Like we got a bunch of shows to catch up to on streaming. Like right now, we started on HBO Max. It's like the Girl Before, I think it's called, and it's like about some architect who made this like really creepily stale apartment, and like the woman that's in it now looks just like the woman that was in it before, and it's some sort of psychological horror thing or something, I think. And so we got to finish that, and I'm sure there's plenty of other shows and movies to watch.
If you have a subscription to Netflix, there's this really really interesting show it's ending. It's like a fourth season and splitting in half, and it's about drugs and a family that's laundering money in the Ozarks of Missouri. It's called Ozark, and it's a fine television broadcast.
Yeah,
we just watched True Detective season 3, and it was so good that we went back and rewatched season 1, and it was as good as ever. It's so good. It almost made me want to give season 2 another chance, but no.
Yeah, season 2 wasn't bad. It just wasn't as good as season 1. Like that, season 1 was just like marvelous. That's like one of the best single seasons in TV history.
Yeah.
Season 2 was just like good. Yeah.
Have you seen 3?
Yes, no. I have. 3 was great.
Yeah.
Season 1 lost me when he took the axe, and I'm like, he should be dead. Spoiler alert.
Season 1 had me hooked on the drug raid. And then what was the other part that was just dope as I don't know what, when they caught like the weirdos in the woods, and they just like staged the whole thing after the machine gun shootout. Yeah, that's a great show. All right, so I guess we've talked enough about things outside of MMA for today. We've had celebrity fights and TV, and you know what? Before we go, man, I just there's one thing I forgot to say about the whole incident. The Oscars yesterday. When we're talking about comedians, feeling protected on stage and whatnot, I think us three. Well, Ben, I'm not sure about you. I don't know if you've had this experience, but I know for sure, Jay, you have, and I know for sure I have. We have been like threatened in the course of our jobs before.
Oh yeah.
So I think we do have a perspective that I think most people can't really relate to on this. And Ben, I don't know if I'm sure you've pissed off a manager or a fighter or someone before.
Yeah.
So we've gotten the threats in our DMs and tweets, and had managers and or fighters confront you face to face and all that sort of stuff. So we get it. Like, but yeah, I just wanted to get that one off my chest, because I think that's an important thing to add on that I totally forgot. So, but well, that's probably going to do it for this week on the Living Death Show. Big thanks to Jay and Ben for just holding it down as always, and Ben Dummy, the dummy account that keeps this fourth screen on Skype clear so we can add whatever fun stuff we're going to add this week. So yeah, like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend, tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. Stay beautiful, stay positive, keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth, and stay sexy. I'll see you when I see you. Peace. I shouldn't have cursed in front of you, Adonis. I'm sorry.